Okay, thanks for coming out. I know it was yesterday, but just wanted to say Happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans across the USA. So grateful for them and the sacrifices that they have made, continue to make to give us the freedoms that we have here in this country. So we've got a lot of family members of our football team that are veterans, former or active military as well, and so grateful for them. So God bless them and this country, and appreciate all they do for us as well. Excited to be back home in Williams-Brice Stadium, a top 25 matchup between two SEC teams as well. Last SEC game of the year as well. No, Gamecock Nation will be excited about being back in Williams-Brice. I guess it's technically a day game when it starts, but with the time change, by the time we get to halftime, it'll certainly be dark and a night game. So I know it'll be electric over there in Williams-Brice, and we need it to be as well. Really good Missouri team coming in here. I think Coach Drinkwitz has done a great job this season. Obviously, they've had some injuries, but at the end of the day, they're nationally ranked and they're 7-2, and they've won 18 out of their last 22 games going back to last season. So may not always be pretty, but they're finding ways to win, and there's something to be said for that. Offensively, obviously, I know they've had some injuries at the quarterback position, but Brady Cook's a fantastic player. Obviously, what he did last season and what he's done this season speaks for itself. Drew Pine, who played the game last week against Oklahoma, is somebody I've got a lot of respect for. His uncle played for my dad at Virginia Tech and was an All-American. When I first got hired at Oklahoma, the very first recruiting trip that Lincoln Riley sent me on was to go see Drew Pine in New Canaan, Connecticut. He was our top quarterback that we were recruiting at Oklahoma. Kyler Murray was our quarterback that upcoming season, and Drew was the only guy that we had offered a scholarship to that Lincoln was after, so he can play. And we didn't get him. Went to Notre Dame and then has bounced around a little bit, but he's tough, competitive, athletic, and can make throws, and you see him get better with experience as well. Two new running backs that have come in through the portal. They both complement each other well. Offensive line is really talented. They were really talented last year, and they've added a transfer from Oklahoma and a transfer from SMU as well. So they're big and athletic on the offensive line, and they have arguably the best receiving core in this conference. When you talk about Luther Burden, who will be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and Theo Weiss, who took over that game last week against Oklahoma in the fourth quarter. You know, Theo's been around football for a while. He and I spent 2 years together at Oklahoma as well, so he's played a lot of football. And yeah, Mookie Cooper and some of those other guys in there. It's a really dangerous and explosive offense. Defensively, lost a lot of really good players off last year's defense. I think 5 of them got drafted, 3 in the first 3 rounds, including a first-round pick as well. But they look the same up front. They're really good on the defensive line. They have size. Brought their one starter back from last season. They've added a starter from Michigan State who's a really good player, defensive tackle that came in from Florida that's a really good player, size and athleticism at linebacker, and once again a really big secondary as well. And then special teams, they've always done a good job as well. You know, they would tell you that their season changed in a lot of ways last season against Kentucky on a fake punt for a touchdown as well. I know Eli has, talked about the importance of that play, and you see Burden back there returning kicks, and they've got a history of, onside kicks and fakes and things like that as well. So big challenge for us this week. We need to certainly coach and play a lot better than we have against these guys since I've been the head coach, but our guys are excited. Obviously coming off a great win over Vanderbilt. It's back to work on Sunday, which is what we did, and need to have a great week of practice this week to play a really good, really well-coached, and really talented Missouri team. Questions? Hey, David?
Shane, you mentioned Drew Pine and everything. I guess tomorrow with the availability report is when we'll find out maybe a little more about Brady Cook's status. Once you find out, will that change preparation in any kind of significant way?
Not really. They do what they do, and it's line up, run outside zone with the running backs, and it's drop back and find ways to get the ball to Burden and Weiss. And no matter who the quarterback is back there, they're going to do that. Both quarterbacks can run. Pine had a quarterback run the other night. That was a huge play in the Oklahoma game for a first down. Brady Cook obviously is a really talented runner as well. So other than just, Cook being a little bit more experienced than Pine, that would be the only thing. But Pine is a guy that's been around football for a while too now, so this isn't his first rodeo. So no, it really doesn't change anything for us. It's going to be, we got to figure out a way to slow down this outside zone scheme that they run very well, and figure out a way to keep number 3 and number 1 in check.
I guess you sort of alluded to it a second ago, but with playing Missouri over these last few years, has there been any consistent theme in these games against them, or is it just kind of a?
I would say they've kicked our butts physically, just to be completely frank. If you go back and look at sack totals, our ability to sack their quarterback and their ability to put pressure on our quarterback, you look at rushing yardage plus our ability to stop the run, we've been nowhere near good enough. And it's not just O-line, D-line, but we haven't been good enough on both sides of the ball to do the things that we need to do to win the football games. You guys have heard me talk about what we call our plan to win, the 6 things that we have to do every single Saturday in order to win football games. So if you take those 6 things and multiply them by 3, that's 18 things over the last 3 years. And I went back and looked yesterday. We've lost 15 of those in our 3 games against Missouri. So the only things that we've done well to win football games is one year we outscored them in the 4th quarter, but it was because we were behind. One year we had less penalties than they did. And one year we did a decent job of stopping the run in regards to how many yards per carry they have. So we've just got to perform better. We haven't done a good enough job, and give Missouri credit for that. They've been better, and a lot of that has been our inability offensively to run the football against these guys.
Back in September, Juju was saying that this team was very aware of the outside noise in the preseason surrounding this team and how that noise was very motivating for them. And now that we're going into November, the pendulum is swinging a bit, and the talk surrounding this program is very positive. The hype is building. People talking about expectations. How far can this team go? How do you talk to your team now about dealing with that side of the noise as you guys are in a pivotal part of the season?
Yeah, don't listen to it. It's easier said than done. Let's be real. The last time we got ranked, we didn't play worth a crap the next week. And I would hope that a lot of our guys remember that. And I'm not saying that it was because we sat around patting ourselves on the back because we were ranked, but we need to make sure that we focus on what's important. And what's important is preparing to play a really physical and good Missouri team. So we talked about it this morning. I mean, we weren't listening and being motivated by anything before, and we shouldn't be doing it now as well. Let's worry about what we can control. But I realize that we only have them for 4 hours a day in this building, so the other 20 hours, everybody on campus. So everybody on campus, please don't be patting them on the back and telling them how amazing they are right now. Please don't be talking about rankings and bowl games and everything else. Let's talk about Missouri. But the other 20 hours that they're outside this building, they've got people telling them how great they are right now. But we've got a mature group. They're very hungry, and nobody's goal was to win 6 wins or win 6 games and be in the top 25. We all had higher expectations going into the season as well. No one else did. I realize that, but this group had very high expectations for themselves going into 2024. It's good to see that we've been able to accomplish a lot of things already, but there's still a lot more for us to accomplish. But we can't take a step back this week either with not performing and playing well.
2 things, Coach. I know last week I asked about perimeter blocking, and you said ask me next week because that's going to be a key element to the Vanderbilt game. So I'll follow up on that, as well as ask about what your secondary is going to have to do. You mentioned the Missouri receivers being one of the best cores in the conference or the country. What they're going to have to do, especially since you've had some injuries back there, to be able to kind of limit what they do on offense.
Yeah, you've got to tackle. I mean, Burden and Weiss, they're going to get their catches. It'd be great if I looked at the stat sheet after the game Saturday night. They didn't have any catches. Is that realistic? Probably not. What we've got to do is do a really good job tackling. It's really impressive watching those 2 guys, what they do once they catch the ball, the yards after contact. They get the ball to Burden in a lot of different ways, whether it be handing the ball off to him on a 4th and 1 the other night against Oklahoma on a jet sweep, or they get in an unbalanced formation and he's off the ball to the field and they motion him in, they motion him out, and he runs an out and up for a 50-yard touchdown. I mean, they just find different ways to get the ball in his hands, or getting a bunch set into the boundary against Vanderbilt and run a naked boot and drag him all the way across the field and nobody can run with him and he catches it and runs it in for a touchdown. So we've got to limit what he does and what Theo does with the ball in their hands after they catch it, which is easier said than done. Plus Weiss is a really big receiver also, so he'll catch a ball, then he does a really good job of getting vertical, and he's a hard guy to bring down. He's a twitchy, shifty, tall, big, athletic guy. So that would be the biggest thing is, let's limit their catches, but when they do catch the ball, make sure we're limiting what they do yards after the catch and after contact. And then his perimeter blocking, it was okay against Vanderbilt, if that was the other question as well. Needs to be better.
Hey, Shane, Gamecock rushing numbers way up this year. Is it having a healthy Rocket? Is it Lenoris's dual threat ability? Is it the offensive line? What's leading to this?
I'd say it's all the above. Certainly Rocket and Oscar and Juju and all of those running backs are good backs, and they're doing a nice job. I saw some stat this morning that Luke Day gave me about Rocket's yards after contact last week was the highest in the nation, which I believe it. He's breaking tackles, and he's a hard guy to bring down. So certainly you look at who's carrying the ball. Anytime you have a quarterback with the ability to run the football, it's going to make your rushing offense, I don't want to say necessarily better, but have a chance to be a lot more productive because of the element that brings. Offensive line-wise, I think those guys are doing some really good things. You've got, Josiah and Tree playing at left tackle that are young guys, but Case and Henry's doing a nice job as a right tackle, and Vershawn's an older guy that's been around here longer than I have, and the fact that he came in, 2020, and then Kamar and Trevon and Torricelli at the guard position are really good football players right now. So it's a good group. We've been able to stay healthy. We've got continuity on there as well. Then I'd say some schematic things as well. Give credit to that offensive staff for what they've done from a schematic standpoint, whether it be going into the season, just, some new tweaks in the run game or things that we've added or adjusted during the year as well. I think we've just continued to get better each week, and it's experience, it's scheme, it's coaching, it's talent, it's all the above.
Hey, Shane, it seems like Josh Simon's really been heating up a lot recently. How do you assess his performance lately, and what's kind of changed for him? And do you try to continue to get him the ball more this weekend?
Absolutely. He's playing at a really high level right now, and he showed flashes of that last year, Jack. I mean, he was a guy we probably should have gotten the ball to him more last year. I mean, you saw some of the things that he did with the ball in his hands last season, but he's just a guy that, last year I think he was sidekick isn't the best word, but it was kind of Trey Knox, and then Josh was the guy that was working alongside Trey Knox, whereas Josh has taken over the mentality, mindset, responsibility of that room in so many ways, and doing a nice job in the run game. That's what I like. You guys see the ball in his hands when he's caught it. He's doing some really good things in the run game as well, and just playing with confidence. And he's a weapon in space as well. So it's good to see, and need him to continue to be better, and everybody else be better around him as well.
Kind of going back to the left tackle, you talked about the availability reports tomorrow, but with how well Tree played Saturday, do you try to get him a drive here and there anyway, even if Josiah's healthy? Do you try to get him in somewhere else? Well, how does that kind of go at left tackle if Josiah is back?
Yeah, we'll see where he is. We're optimistic on all those guys that weren't able to finish the Vanderbilt game, that we'll be able to get those guys back. Optimistic we'll get DeAndre Jules back this week as well. But regardless of Josiah's health, Tree came in and did some good things, and certainly need to keep him rolling. If Josiah is able to play, he's probably not going to be 100%. And Tree was a starter last year for however many games, 10, 11 games last season. So we got full confidence in him, and feel good about both those guys being in the game. They've both done some really good things for us, and proud of Tree and the way that he played when he came in last week.
The offense has been so efficient coming off the bye week. When you look back over these last 2 weeks, was there something in the bye week that you guys tweaked or figured out works well, or is it just, hey, everyone's doing their job a little bit better and that's creating a more efficient offense?
I think it's a little bit of everything. You look at the bye week and you say, okay, where are we struggling and why? How can we coach it better maybe. You look at what's not working and maybe let's do a little bit less of this. You look at, what's next. Are there some schematic things that we could do that we're not doing that could help us? So we did all that during the bye week. And, I think it's a little bit of that for sure, but I think it's a lot of it just experience. Rocket continuing to get, healthier and more in the flow. Lenoris, we've done a little bit more maybe called, not that we didn't call quarterback runs before, but probably a little bit more just called quarterback runs where there really isn't a read necessarily. It's you're going to carry the ball. We've done a little bit of that the last couple of weeks as well. And I think, I know y'all don't want to hear it, but it's true. We've got a lot of young faces that were playing on our offense early in the season, and we knew they would get better. And, people had the pitchforks out after the Old Dominion game, but we had a redshirt freshman quarterback. We had a true freshman left tackle. We had a true freshman wide receiver. We had a true freshman tight end. And then a bunch of new transfers around them that weren't here last year and some that weren't even here for spring practice. So you want it to look amazing from the get-go, but it doesn't always work that way. Our guys just continued to work and get better each week and have done some really good things. And we've done a better job, too. You look better statistically when you don't turn the ball over and you don't when you go 9 of 12 on third down, that allows you to be on the field a lot more, and those stats are going to go up when you play more plays, too.
Shane, following up on Rocket, in your conversations with him, does he feel like he's 100% close to being what he was in 22, or maybe even does he think that he's even surpassed that?
I haven't necessarily asked him. I would imagine if you asked him, he would probably say that he feels like it. He's worked really hard and to get his body in a position. I know how productive he was in 22 when we played him out there at Arkansas in the year that he had, and he looks a lot like that guy to me from my vantage point as well. And kudos to him, just the way that he's worked. You guys have heard me say it, I think, from January until literally now. He's in that weight room at 6:15 a.m. just getting extra work and doing exercises to not necessarily get stronger. He wasn't in there lifting. He was in there doing exercises to try and strengthen, parts of his body and get them in a better position to play. No necessarily weights, just stretches and mobility exercises and things like that he was in there on his own doing, and he was very committed to doing that. He stayed up here the whole month of May when he didn't have to, when everybody else had gone home, except for the offensive lineman, I guess. So he's just been very convicted to and driven to do the things that he needed to do to be a great player, and it's good to see him having the success that he's having right now because he's worked really hard for it.
Shane, it seems crazy to think about it, but 3 weeks from now, you're going to be signing a bunch of players, or you can sign a bunch of players. Do you like this earlier date, and how do you balance kind of the GM side of trying to navigate next year with, hey, we've got games to complete, and there's a big task ahead for us? Yeah,
it's a lot. I probably speak for a lot of coaches when I say that the month of December stinks. It's hard just because there's so much going on. Luckily this year there's going to be postseason play. You've got portal, you've got high school recruiting, you've got getting ready for postseason play, you've got the spring semester starting in January right around the corner as well. There's a lot that happens in December. Worry about what you can control and what's important right now. To answer your first question, yes, I love the early signing because you go ahead and the whole point behind it was, in my mind, or at least in our meetings as head coaches in the SEC, the biggest thing with the early signing period was so those high school kids don't get messed over, lost in the shuffle, whatever, from a portal standpoint. So you sign your high school class, they're signed, and then the portal opens after that as well, which I think is great because there's going to be no David's a really good high school quarterback, but you're a transfer portal quarterback that just popped in the portal, and I'm going to sign you, and I'm going to call David and say, hey, sorry, bud, we can't take you. That doesn't happen anymore. It won't happen now because of the early signing period. So I like that aspect of it. Plus, it'll be different for us as coaches because we're not allowed on the road recruiting in the month of December this year, which that's never been the case. Normally it's you play Clemson, you're around the building all week, the next week, and then Friday hits and boom, you're out recruiting. You're at state championship games. You're in homes. I mean, every freshman that's on our team right now, I think I was in their house or their high school over a 2-week span in December last year. It was lunch with Mason Love out in Kansas City and then dinner with Dante Reno in the Northeast the same day, and then home that night. We can't go out on the road recruiting in December this year, which will be a little bit odd. So there's not going to be a home visit with high school recruits unless I go back and see their family in January or something when they're already here in school. So that'll be a little bit different. But I do like the early signing period. You get your high school class signed. You know that these guys are coming. They're locked in. You're not chasing them around for 3 weeks in December. Then the portal happens and you have a better understanding of what your roster is going to look like in 25 because you've already signed them. And then it's figuring out, I should have added this to the December conversations about who's going pro, who's not going pro, who's doing this, who's doing that. So you're bouncing a lot of balls in December, but being able to do the signing period early, I do like because it gets it, that's done. And then you can focus on 2025 in regards to portal and then you're really full speed ahead on your class of, what does that become? Class of 26, the guys that are juniors in high school right now, if that makes sense.
Hey, Shane, I know your team's success hasn't surprised you or anyone else in the building, but I'm curious, is there any one player, position group, or maybe aspect of the team that has pleasantly surprised you to this point?
I knew Kyle Kennard was good. I don't know if I knew Kyle Kennard was going to be just this good. And that's just full disclosure. I mean, I watched his tape. I mean, you watched he had some really good plays at Georgia Tech, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like you just turned on a highlight tape and it's just 20 straight minutes of Kyle Kennard just sacking quarterbacks and stuff. There was some good stuff. I mean, I remember specifically watching Kyle play against Wake Forest last year and just seeing the explosion, the twitch, the bend, the athleticism, the strength, all the stuff that we're seeing right now. I remember seeing that and thinking, man, this guy's going to be great. Could be really, really great for us. But then I remember this past summer, I had a former NFL head coach that I was on the phone with back in July. I was on vacation down at the beach, and I had a former NFL coach that is not a coach right now, but I think he probably wants to get back to being in the NFL. And he was calling, hey, if I get back in the league next year, let me ask you about some of these guys. And he started talking about, what he thought a great portal pickup Kyle Kennard was as well. And it got me thinking, he sees the flashes of that too. So surprise maybe isn't a great word, but just seeing it's not a flash. It's like dominant every single Saturday, and very much like I was telling Rick with Rocket, just the way that Rockets work, Kyle's the same way. I mean, he's been on a mission since he got here in January. We give out our Student Athletes of the Week awards. We call them the Scholar Ballers, and he was a Scholar Baller this week because of what he's doing academically as well. He's really picked it up this semester and is on track to graduate in December. So he's really taken this opportunity that he has here at South Carolina and has helped himself so much on and off the field. And his best football is still in front of him as well. I saw he was named today a semi-finalist for the Bednarik award trophy, which is awesome as well. So really happy for him and all these guys. I mean, you just look at all these transfers that have come in and what they've been able to do for us. It's pretty cool. Torricelli Simpkins coming in from North Carolina Central, and he's the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week, or Rocket, or Kyle. So all that.
Obviously, you just mentioned Torricelli Simpkins. How, in him receiving these national and SEC honors, how impressive have you been with what he's brought to that offensive line this year, both on and off the field, with the mentality he seems to bring?
Love it. I saw that. That's maybe another surprise for you in a good way, is that I knew Torricelli was a good player. I don't know if I knew that Torricelli had like the energy, competitive spirit that he has as well. I mean, just his mentality on the field. And he showed that when he got here in the wintertime, that, there's something different about this guy. I mean, you could see that in the weight room before we even went on the practice field back in March. Just the way he worked and his spirit that he carried himself with. And then to be able to, see him have the production and the success that he's having on the field, it's really cool. The guy's just so grateful to be here and truly appreciates every day that he's in this building and a part of the program, and the way that he plays on the field, it shows.
Sorry, Jordan. Before the season started, when I was talking to Lenore's dad, he basically said the most interesting thing about him was that he eats lemons whole, and he was having trouble just finding ways to talk about him outside of football. Obviously, he's very calm. He's very kind of steady with just the increased, obviously, playing, but just in the spotlight. Are you at all seeing him change, or is he kind of like Matt Saracen, where he just continues to be QB1, but he's slow and steady and doesn't really change his persona?
I think steady and just doesn't really change his persona. He is who he is. I think he's very confident. I know he's very confident. He's very poised. He's a competitor, as I've talked to you guys about before. But I really haven't seen a change in him. He's I don't know if outspoken is the word, but I think he's more willing to speak up in some ways. And I'm on a group text with some of our leaders and seniors, and yesterday the big discussion was uniforms, and Lenore's was voicing his displeasure with someone's uniform choice. And I don't know if he would have voiced his displeasure back in September, but he was willing to speak up and say that, no, I don't like that. Maybe that's part of the experience. I don't know. But as far as what I see, I go to those quarterback meetings pretty much every morning with Dow and Mike Shula and Dow Loggins and the quarterbacks, and he's the same guy in there. But I think he's just he's never comfortable, but I think he's very more at ease, maybe understanding the position when you're the starting quarterback in the SEC at a place like South Carolina, when you're the home state kid, that young man, that's a big responsibility. And he was dealing with that certainly at the beginning of the season, but I think he's really, grown maybe more into that role and has a better handle on things. Not that he didn't before, but just has a better handle on it overall than he did.
You guys brought in a lot of transfers this past year, and a lot of them are starting from you. They're big school guys, small school guys. When you look at the transfer class you brought in, I guess it was 9 months ago, is there something that you learned from the guys who are now starting for you that you take into December?
Bring in good people, for sure, that love football, that want to buy into what we're about here, and trust our evaluations. I think it's easy, and I'm not talking about any school specifically, but I think a lot of schools it's easy. Jordan from wherever, Ohio State just popped in the portal. Let's go get that guy. He'd be a great pickup for us. Get a transfer from a name school, top 5 school, Ohio State or whoever it might be, as opposed to just really sitting down and evaluating, can this guy really help us? Does he fit what we want? And we didn't have a lot of competition for Carlins Platel coming out of Assumption College a couple years ago. We didn't have a lot of competition for Torricelli Simpkins coming out of North Carolina Central. We didn't have a lot of competition for Demetrius Knight coming out of Charlotte. But all 3 of those guys have or will be playing in the NFL. And it's because, speaking to Torricelli and D. Knight specifically, because they're here with us now, they're great people. They aren't coming in here to try and get, pad their stats and basically rent a program for a year. They came in and they've bought into everything that we want that we're about. We trusted our evaluation. We knew they were great people. We knew they had a chance to be really, really good players. They both love football. And when you bring in guys, and it's no different in high school recruiting, when you bring in people that are about the right stuff, that are good people, high character young men that love football, love being a part of a team, and you trust your evaluation and don't worry about the pushback that, man, their signing class, excuse my language, their signing class sucks because they signed this guy from North Carolina Central or Charlotte. What are we doing? Why didn't we go get these guys from all these Power 4 schools as well? Well, maybe because those Power 4 guys aren't as good of players as these guys from the Group of 5, and we evaluated them and think that guy's better. Or maybe we brought this guy in from a Power 4 school and we brought him in here on a 24-hour visit, and we knew pretty quickly he ain't going to fit what this program's about, because he truly does want to come here and just rent a football program for a year and and whatnot, make some NIL money and move on. And we ain't about that. I mean, I'm not saying NIL is not a part of it, because it is, but making sure that guys are choosing South Carolina for the right reasons. So we did that with those guys. And we're not perfect. I mean, there's some guys that we brought in the portal that aren't here anymore and went the other direction, and we wish them well. But we've been really successful with the portal because of the kind of people that we bring in, and we trust our evaluations, and we really don't care where you came from. It's can you help us, and that's what those guys have been able to do. All righty. Thank you all.